The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Hedman and I work in the ComAround customer success team, helping our customers to achieve their set goals and coach them in the right direction. Today's webinar is called Knowledge at Your Fingertips. And as the name implies, this is meant to infuse the idea that you should always have access to knowledge, no matter where you are or what you're working with. This webinar will be recorded and sent to you later if you want to re-watch it. And if any of you have any questions during the presentation, please write them in the webinar chat and we'll try to answer them at the end in a short Q&A. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark here and assume that most of you have already encountered different roadblocks in making this happen in your organization. And I hope that at the end of this presentation, you will have gained some insight in both how we here at ComAround have chosen to approach these challenges and what you can do in your organization to overcome them. First, I'm going to highlight some of the challenges I think are worth discussing. And after that, we will move on to what our approach to these challenges are. After that, we'll have a look at the tech aspect of it all, and which then also includes a short demo of our apps. Before we get into it, however, I want to bring this up. According to Gartner, by 2020, customers will, by the vast majority, interact solely digitally with your organization without talking to a human. This means you'll have to start adapting now to be prepared for the coming change. Which brings me to this. Shifting left to a zero-level support is something that ComAround has been preaching for many years. This basically means that if your users can fix their issue or find an answer to their question on their own, it will increase both user satisfaction and, because of the faster resolution time, its efficiency. You'll lower the cost for the organization overall. With that in mind, let's jump into it. How do people work today? Are there too many steps? I suggest that everyone here count the number of steps from the issue to resolution in your current IT environment. Meaning, how many steps would a user have to go through to find an answer or fix your current knowledge base or its equivalent? As I pointed out earlier with the Gartner report, this demographic I'm talking about much more prefers to find an answer without calling the support or asking a colleague. They want to find it on their own. So if you could just put yourself in their place and count the number of steps necessary and what they are, it will give you some insight to where along the journey someone might start feeling frustrated or simply stop logging. On the move, I'm sure most of us have had problems while not sitting in front of a computer. It could be anything from not getting the printer to work or not having the correct Wi-Fi password whilst sitting in a conference room ready for a presentation. Limiting the accessibility to your knowledge base because of location will needlessly limit your user base too, when you don't really have to. Is there email overflow in your organization? For the last couple of decades, email has been the most widely used tool for businesses' communication. Businesses have exclusively used email to reach their users. Some almost abuse it with having an overflow of them. As a result, email has lost its efficientness it once had. So sending valuable articles with knowledge in them through these mediums might be inefficient to actually deliver it to your users. It will just be lost in the sea of other unread emails. Now, this is how we've decided to approach the issues. Are there too many steps? Then we'll simply cut away all the non-critical steps. User research shows that each click a user has to do to reach the information they are looking for makes them more likely to give up. This means having the information often isn't the most important part. It has to be easy to find and accessible too. Times it's even more important. I know what most of you are thinking. Well, of course, we already knew that. But again, look over those steps we talked about earlier and ask yourself, are all of these necessary? Sometimes we add steps and we think it makes something easier, but often it's just makes it more complicated. The journey needs to feel efficient, that you are moving towards a definite goal. For example, are there several login screens between the user and the answer? If you have a click-to-click setup where you have to click your way through a structure, how many times does one actually have to do that to find the source of the information? Is the answer written in a short and easy to read article, or is it several pages long? Being faced with a wall of text is very discouraging, especially when someone is hoping for an easy answer. If you're on the move, discover a new demographic of users this way. By enabling people to access knowledge from more places than the desktop, you have expanded the width of your target audience. People who previously have not been able to take part of your knowledge base can now consume and contribute to it. Imagine a construction worker being able to look up some blueprints while on the construction site, or a janitor looking up the fuses settings while working on the switchboard to get the power started again. And of course, younger generations are more likely to use apps for looking for information compared to others. Allowing more people to take part of the knowledge base will in turn allow it to grow and become more complete for all your knowledge needs. Is there an email overflow? Simply do not rely on distributing knowledge throughout email. Instead of relying on a back and forth email conversation between the, say, service agent and the user, let them take part of the knowledge from the source. Because a knowledge base is a constant evolving and changing thing, having your users access it instead of channeling it through emails, let them take part of the constant updates. And because they now don't have to go through a long email conversation that's very static, it's basically a fast lane for them to consume knowledge, which I'm sure we all agree upon is the preferred way to consume it. Because there's nothing more frustrating than having a problem, knowing someone else knows how to fix it, but you just have to sit there and wait for them to actually give you the solution. People want the answers now. They don't want to wait. It only causes frustration when you have to. So, how do we approach this out of a practical tech perspective? How did we do this? Overall, we've taken the approach to spread to as many places and systems in the organization as possible, and in that way, the knowledge base can be accessible from everywhere they're in. This can be done with API integrations to other systems, for example, but that still limits the knowledge base to your desktop. We want it to spread further, so we developed apps. Our current collection of apps support the whole knowledge journey, from idea to creation to consumption. We're trying to make both creating knowledge articles and consumption of knowledge articles accessible and easy. First off, we have the start of the journey. Throughout user research, we found that a lot of knowledge workers are creating their knowledge in Word. We of course have import functions in ComAround Knowledge for Word documents, but because we want to be accessible where people are working, we made a Word app so that they can create knowledge and never have to leave the program to actually contribute it. Now you can create an article and with a click of a button, push it into the knowledge base. For those of you with knowledge workers working in Word, I highly recommend that you make use of this app. If you make it easier and faster for knowledge workers to create articles, they will in turn make more because it won't be a hassle to do so. Here we can see a short demo on how it works. The Word app simply works as a plugin in the Word program. You have it there up in the right corner. After finishing writing the article, simply click the button, decide what the title of the article should be, and then I fill out any other metadata and upload it to the cloud. By making it easier to create articles, it's more likely they'll create articles. And we are hoping this is the step in the right direction to do that. And then also, of course, from here you can jump straight into the knowledge base and see the end result of it. Now for the consumption of knowledge. Mobile apps, giving people easy access to the knowledge base based on all devices regardless of time and place. The convenience of having a knowledge base in your pocket at all times should not be understated. If your users at the press of a button can gain access to your combined knowledge at any time, your usage will increase. And with increased usage, the motivation of your knowledge workers will increase to contribute to this wealth of knowledge. Because if they feel that their contribution is actively being used by everybody, they will be more likely to and more motivated to increase its quality. The mobile apps are available both in the Android and iOS store. And it has been developed with the end user in mind. With that, I mean that a lot of the knowledge workers' function and buttons aren't really necessary for an end user. So we could scale back a lot of those functions and make it a more clean experience for the end users. It will make it more modern and it will also make it more easy to read. Just covering the whole screen with the different buttons and fields can often be confusing. So keeping it as clean as possible is always good for the end user. What I just said about mobile apps, is also applies to the desktop actually. With a Windows 10 app, you as an administrator can make sure that every user in your domain has a knowledge app in the start menu or in the taskbar. Again, if it's easy for them to find, it's more likely they'll use it. This way you can guarantee that they always have it accessible to them. It's easier to find an app on your desktop than finding it in a subfolder on the intranet. And again, also the Windows 10 app has an end user perspective in mind. Now, what kind of benefits could you actually gain from all of these things? Let's show you some metrics here. Because having a central knowledge database comes with a very clear benefits, as these metrics show. This is the industry standard for companies that have successfully adopted knowledge methodology for their support organization. And I want to highlight two specific metrics here that I think are very relevant for this presentation. A shorter time to resolution is a very clear example on that letting people find the information themselves is much faster and efficient than having a back and forth dialogue with someone else. Then, of course, people become more satisfied in the organization. This is connected with the frustration part I was talking about earlier. By removing the tedious waiting, you're making people happier because, well, waiting isn't fun. I actually highly recommend that you read our book, Self-Service and Knowledge Success, which was written by two of my colleagues, Per Strand and Lena Stormvinge. There you can read further about these metrics and how you can achieve them, the different methods with it. To recap, we want the knowledge base to be accessible, easy to find. We want there to be few steps to find the knowledge. It shouldn't be too long of a journey to actually find the end result. People will give up along the way and just become angry. Answers should be easily interpreted. If it's difficult to read or understand, or there's just a lot to read, then the end results will not be pleasant for the end users anyway. And you have more users in need of knowledge than you know. If we look at this out of a purely support standpoint, then the number of support cases does not equal the number of people in actual need of help. By enabling everyone to take part of the knowledge base, you are now helping people in your organization that previously couldn't get the help they needed, or simply didn't bother to ask, or didn't know who to ask. This way you can spread it to more corners of the organization without actually having to do that much more. Thank you, everyone. That was what I had to say about knowledge at your fingertips. Again, my name is Jacob Hedman, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have in a short Q&A. So if you have any, please write them in chat. And if you don't want to take them in chat now, you can email me and we'll take it at a separate occasion. A few good questions from yesterday's webinar. I could repeat some of them. One of them was about how to authenticate users so they have an easy access to these different apps. They of course have a AD login functionality. So if you, for example, have an Azure setup, you can let your users log in through that way. Another questions that we had was if the Word app actually imported images and such too. For those of you who have access to ComAround knowledge today, you by now would know about the Word import function, and the Word app basically works in that way too, at least it's intended to. We're of course still working on perfecting all of these apps, but it's a good step in the right direction. And basically try it out, and I'm sure we can have back and forth dialogue from that if you have any questions. We had a good question here regarding if you could import several, make several articles in one Word document. As I stated earlier, it's still in a state of developing. So, and we're looking at a lot of customer feedback when developing these apps. So, if it's a feature that is heavily requested, we will of course put it in there. But for now, we are more listening to what people are actually asking for, and then go from there. So if you, from using it, find that it will be much easier to do use the Word app if it had the multi-import function, then please send it to feedback@comaround.com, and we'll make sure to try to get it into our product plan. We had a few questions about templates. For now, in the regarding the Word apps, it would have to be made within the Word program itself, the template. The Word app is more meant for actually importing what you have written, not to add things upon it. So that's why there's a direct link to the knowledge base in after you pushed the article to the Knowledge Hub. That way you can just enter it and start editing it in the ComAround knowledge right away if you feel that is necessary. Here about different import formats. Right now we have, for the pure conversion rate, that from a document to a knowledge article, we're currently only supporting the docx format, but there are other ways to import, say, PDFs or CVS files and stuff like that. These can be done in both with API integrations, so there's different kinds of scripts that we can run, and of course you can also simply add iframes in articles to import, say, a PDF documentation or a PowerPoint presentation or something like that, so you can still have it in your knowledge article. I think that's the questions we have time for right now, but I saw a few other good questions here, and if I didn't have time to answer some of them, please email them to me and we can expand on them later. But for now, thank you very much for listening, and I hope that it has been informative. Thanks.